Greetings. I hope everyone is doing well. So grateful for you tuning in. I have a very interesting conversation that I want to have on today. I was talking to some of my friends in a clubhouse room the other day about how a lot of times where I personally fuck up as a projector is I insert my opinion somewhere where it wasn't requested, as opposed to allowing someone to invite me to share what I think or how I feel. So, in that, I was able to come up with like some remedies, right? They were suggesting that the next time that I'm in a conversation and I have something that I want to share and I'm not being invited to share it, that I use it in order to build the content on my own platform. So that's what I'm here doing today, taking full advantage of that. I am expecting to have a guest to hop in today, so I'm going to chit-chat with y'all just a little bit, give y'all some background on the issue as I am waiting for them to join. Hey, Shawnee, how you doing? Shawnee G in the building. I was roaming the clubhouse streets, which is something that I very rarely do. Like, if it's not actual proof with the ladies that I chant with, or, you know, with somebody, I see somebody from Actual Proof, Love Madrone, my big sister, or somebody in there, I don't be fucking around on Clubhouse because you can get into all kind of weird shit on Clubhouse. But something drew me to this room. I think it was the name of it. They were just asking, do women do a good job of vetting the men that they date? And so I was like, oh, this is going to be an interesting conversation. I just want to, hear what people have to say. And I sat in the audience for a little while and they invited me up on a stage. And like the whole time they were having the discussion, I just had like this burning question in me to wonder, you know what I'm saying, what some of the women in the room had to say about how they use their intuition in order to vet out their partners, right? And so after, trying to bombard my way in a few times, I got to get the question in and, just kind of pose the question about, like what ways do people connect with spirit in order to get messages about the people that they date. While we're here, I will show me personally, like generally, if I meet someone and I'm interested in them, the first thing I'm going to do is go to my divination tools. Well, not the first thing I'm going to do. Like, I pay attention to the way that my body feels when I'm around them. One thing that I'm starting to realize about myself is that a lot of my trauma caused me to disconnect from my emotion and from my physical body. And so now that I'm in my healing journey, I have a greater connection to my physical body, and I have a visceral reaction to people that I shouldn't be connected to. Like, I can feel it in my body when something is getting on my nerves, when I don't like something, when something is destroying my energetic field or robbing my peace, even if it's just a small siphon. Like, I can feel that, something is going on with my energy when I'm around a person, and I'm, starting to connect to those messages that my body gives me and being able to interpret those messages. So that's my first thing that I do when I'm vetting a partner. And then, as I was stating, I also use my divination tools. Let me see if I can send Alvin this request. Shawnee, if you ain't doing nothing, I can hear what you got to say. But I will usually use my divination tools and just allow messages from my spirit to pop up to me through my cards, right? And so, as we go deeper into this conversation about intuition and how people tap into their intuition, someone made a comment about women's intuition and how a woman's intuition is generally stronger than that of a man. And so they went into this whole conversation about, is that true? And is no such thing as a women's intuition, was something that was said, and they ended up ending that room and starting another room and having this long 12-hour conversation about intuition. And for me, it was kind of difficult to participate in the intuition because a lot of people were talking about instinct as opposed to really speaking to intuition and the messages that they get from their intuition. And so I wanted to talk a little bit today about the differences that there are between our intuition and our instincts, right? And so let me see if Shawnee is available to hop up here real quick and send you an invite, girl. Oh, there you go. The difference between intuition and instinct was something that I really felt like was important to add to the conversation. And so, for me personally, when I'm trying to determine where a message from within my body is coming from, if I get like a gut instinct that I feel like is coming from my root, to me, that's an instinct. Instinct is like the things that you were born with as far as your ancestral connections are concerned, feeling safe. Hey, Elman, I'm trying to get you up here. I don't know. I sent you a request. I'm going to try to send it again. It says you weren't available, so let's see how that works out.
What's happening?
Hey, I'm glad that you were able to join. I had wanted to have a conversation, and I was getting right to the part where I was about to ask the question. I was in this room on Clubhouse, and we were talking about women doing their due diligence in order to vet potential suitors, and somehow we got into a conversation about intuition and, being able to use intuitive methods in order to, get messages from spirit as to the people we're dealing with, right? And I think that I ran into a little frustration in the conversation because a lot of people were confusing instinct with intuition. So I just wanted to have a conversation about the difference between the two, and let me give people some cues as to how they can start to differentiate between what is they're coming from an instinctual, like root energy, and then what's coming from their energy or, their intuition, or like that third eye energy to the, connection to collective consciousness and source, right? And so that's kind of how I wanted to center the conversation today. I was just explaining that for me, the way that I tend to differentiate between those two is, where I feel it at in my body. I think a lot in my trauma, I had a coping mechanism of disassociating with my body. And so for a long time, I didn't know where no message was coming from in my body. I wasn't even paying attention to my body or connected to my emotions enough to know. But through my healing journey, it's like I realized that I get so many messages from my body. And if I'm conscious of where the source of information is coming from with me, it's easier for me to determine, okay, this is something that I need to act on, or this is related to a fear and I don't want to act out of that intention, and just being able to differentiate. And so they kept talking about gut feelings, right? And for me, if it's a gut feeling and I feel it like in my stomach, in my gut, for me, that is going to be instinct, right? What I inherited in my DNA and what came from ancestral experiences and everything that I have as a part of who I am in order to keep me safe. And it's going to be very responsive to like fear-based things, right? But when I'm getting a message from my intuition, I feel it more in like a third eye space, like here, and here, my pineal gland, even like I'll get more like a tingling sensation, or I'll feel like a cool breeze on my crown chakra, right? And then I know that this is like my intuition speaking to me, right? It's more of like a comfort even, right? As opposed to the fearful feeling that I'll get when it's my instincts. And sometimes my instincts and my intuition align, but there are times when they don't align. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about like what your experience has been and how you differentiate between the two, and just kind of bounce some ideas around and get that conversation out there in the ether.
Cool. I'm not proficient in the sense of being able to direct specifically where certain things come from outside of chakras themselves. But like when we spoke previously, we spoke about trauma itself, and I think I had spoken on how your organs record trauma. But to what you were speaking about, being intuitive, a lot of times we tend to, it ends up being education based, because of the experiences we've been through that we've taken time to assess and address, and repetitively going through circumstances that allow us to say, oh, I feel this way. I remember what this way feels like in these different specific areas. I've seen these trends in my life. Um, Going into your intuition or your relationship with your spirit self, oftentimes those things are beyond us. Albeit, if you do practice and pay attention, you can learn, like you said, in certain areas where in your third air area, you will feel either heating or cooling. In these different spaces, your throat chakra, you probably catch fire in your throat chakra, you personally. But it ends up being a source of, okay, I can proceed forward, or maybe I should back off, stop, go, so on and so forth. For me, I spent a lot of time in my life going in search of comfort. And so in those hard places, seeking comfort so that I can be okay through those periods where different emotions arise and they would normally shut me down, figuring out how to be comfortable there. The bad thing about that was I began numbing myself to feelings in order to be in uncomfortable places. And in doing so, emotionally for me, I became numb to a lot of circumstances. And so I wouldn't feel anything. Unless the only thing that would seep through, and it's because of my long-standing relationship with it, is fear. Growing up in a household, it was a very disciplined household. And so you could do something and then everything would go sideways, causing the adults over my care to be abrasive. And we walked around on eggshells as a result of it. And so it was very easy for that fear emotion to arise inside of me. And it would shut me down because I wouldn't know how to operate in that space otherwise, because we were trying to de-escalate any situation before any situation arrived. And so that would always peek through, no matter how numb I was to any other emotion. And so I began just to process my way through that, to the point where I was realizing, well, I'm not, and if I would have a conversation with someone, they would always ask, well, what are you afraid of? And I was like, I'm not afraid of anything. I just feel that feeling that represents this fear. And so these days I try to figure out, okay, for me, who said this is what fear was supposed to feel like? Who said that I was supposed to be afraid whenever this energy, feeling, or emotion come up? And I would begin to process and work through that in different ways, allowing myself to charge forward through any situation, no matter how I felt. But on the flip side of that, if I'm connecting with another being and assisting them through some of their trauma-based issues or emotions, because I could actually taste what the energy or emotion or feeling feels like somewhere inside of my body, then and it would help me guide them to wherever they needed to go in order to address what their problems were. And so it was kind of a thing where me numbing myself, also processing in the spaces that I were familiar with, assisted me in assisting others when it came down to me sitting in my quiet place. For a very long time, it would be confusion for me because everything just felt foreign, or it wouldn't come to the surface at all. And so I have to allow myself to sit inside of my emotions as they rise, and just let them begin to peek through and break through that exterior that I built around them, just to go in search of comfort. Just so that I can build momentum again. and move forward, if any of that is understandable. But a lot of times with people in their intuition, you have to develop a relationship with who you are internally, who you are on an emotional level, spiritual level, mental level, all these different things. A lot of times we spend a lot of time on who we are mentally and who we are socially. But especially Black men, they don't allow themselves to sit inside of their emotional spaces to process the what, where, why, when, and hows of them getting to the point where they were at. I was sitting on a call about a week or so ago, and a gentleman just came up out of nowhere and just started asking, well, my girlfriend says that I'm not emotional, and I understand why, but am I broken? And he actually was broken, but he knew swords. So I told him, like, it's great that you know swords. Because if you can go back to the direct source, you can start working on and processing your way through a lot of that stuff. Like for fear was this, like, I understood growing up walking around on eggshells. I understood that part. But when I was young, it was just discipline. That's all it was. It's like, you're supposed to be a disciplined person in certain areas in your life. And it starts with how you're reared. At least that's how we grew up. So that's the assumption. But for this gentleman, he knew specifically where it came from. And he never took the time just to, just either seek out therapy or allow him to sit in his quiet place and process and work through some of those moments that he hadn't had the opportunity to grieve himself through, just so he could start working on himself outwardly. And so whenever he's in social settings, he doesn't know how to respond. So if a person complains or wants to do something but doesn't trust themselves in certain areas, it's kind of foreign to him because everything is by this specific book, and this is the road that you follow. If it doesn't work out, it just didn't work out, but you continue on this road that you follow. I see that a lot with people, but I always suggest therapy for anyone these days. But just taking that time, sitting in your quiet place, and allowing this stuff to come to the surface so you can process from wherever you are in this present moment would be a great deal in order for you to strengthen your relationship with who you are on a spiritual level as well as on a physical level.
So basically, it's no shortcuts. You got to do the work.
Unfortunately, but a lot of times it's not that people aren't trying to do the work; they just don't have the tools.
Yeah.
Yeah, just identifying what the tools are very important. But a lot of times people are always seeking out the answer, but when it doesn't show up in a cookie cutter fashion that you can assess and address immediately, then it's like, well, what am I going to do with this? And they sit it on the shelf and they just keep going. But yeah, you have to begin to test those theories, feelings, and emotions that arise in you at different periods of time. I think we discussed it briefly when I got shot a few months ago. Immediately, everything just became clear as to how I got in that space. It was just like, wow, I haven't been listening because at different points throughout my time prior to me getting shot, things were happening that was saying, Alvin, don't do this. Alvin, don't go there. Alvin, don't put yourself in this situation. And I would just shrug my shoulders and just keep going because that's what I was used to. And I wasn't allowing myself to address how I feel. And so immediately when I got shot, and you ask yourself, how did I get here? Everything just started flooding back. And it was like, oh, I said yes too many times. I didn't trust my gut. I didn't listen to that little person on your shoulder just saying, hey, take care of yourself first. And so making concessions for so many different people and so many different other circumstances left me in a space where I wasn't safe, and I couldn't see it because I wasn't allowing myself to access who I was intuitively, emotionally, spiritually, and so on and so forth.
So, first, the people who have joined, greetings. I've pinned the question, into their intuition. How do you know the difference? So feel free to answer the question in the chat. If you're watching live or if you're watching the replay, I just want to, hear how you guys tend to process those two sources of information. And some of the things that you said, Alvin, made me think about some other things that I think it would be good to touch on. We talk a lot about strengthening your connection with intuition, but I think it's also important to let people know how that connection with intuition is weakened, right? I know when I was a part of the church circuit, they used to call it quenching the Holy Spirit, right? When you know what to do, when you're receiving a message and it's clear to you, you know what I'm saying, that this is the divine inspiration, still go ahead and do whatever it is that you want to do, although it's obviously against the better knowledge that you have access to. And I feel like you kind of touched on that when you were talking about the fact that you weren't listening. And I guess I just want to maybe give like some guidance and some tools to how we can be more conscious and aware of when we're not listening to that voice. So do you have like a plan going forward of, hey, this is how I'm going to make sure I can get back in a circumstance where I have gone to this point where I'm in danger and I'm not connected to the voice that can keep me safe?
For me, just going back over those moments where I was doing some things going against my better judgment. Sometimes you just take a moment. You have to you have to take a look deeply into what it is you're doing, why you're doing it. How does it acclimate to the foundation that you've already set before you? And is it you stepping outside of your character, or is it one of those things where you're taking a chance? Also, if you just simply ask the question and pay attention to how you feel about it, you've been in those spaces where there's something you wanted, something you needed, or something you had to do, and it felt uncomfortable to you. That's how you really have to become familiar with what those feelings are. That's why I spend time just sitting inside however I feel. But you really need to take time to do that, because intuitively, spiritually, a lot of information and messages are coming through that. And so you really just have to just take time and listen and just trust that how you're feeling in that moment is for a reason and a beneficial reason. That's going to help you go forward. And practicing trusting on yourself is the only way you're going to build confidence in yourself in those areas where you don't readily have the answers, but you still have to take action. And so just pay attention to how you feel.
Gotcha. I think in my disconnection, a lot of times, like you said, it came from being in places where I didn't really want to be. For a long time, I felt like that as a mother, it was my responsibility to basically ignore the way that I felt, any resistance that I had as it relates to going and earning money, from my employer. Up until a couple years ago, I had never quit a job. Like, you stay on that job until they don't want you no more was my mentality, so that I could provide for my children. And I think that caused a big disconnect between me and my intuition, because something inside of me every day was telling me, this is not for you. But I was feeling like, well, it's my obligation and my duty in order to care for my children to push past this feeling and go and do whatever it is that I felt like I needed to do in order to earn money. And I just wanted to speak a little bit to how we can get caught up in the day-to-day of things and fail to realize that what we feel obligated to isn't always in our best interest to continue it. Now, by no means is it okay for you to just stop taking care of your kids, but when your body is telling you every day when you get up and get ready to go to an employer that it's something that you shouldn't be doing, like, seek alternatives. I think it's so easy to get comfortable. For me, it was very easy to get comfortable in, well, I got the direct deposit, everything is going well. And it's funny because today is the 1 year anniversary of the time that the opportunity that I had for employment currently was offered to me. And I just look at what I do now and how I'm in the same field and I have a very similar set of responsibilities, but the amount of support that I have in getting my job done and the amount of appreciation that the people that I work with have for me make all the difference. And I'm not making, that big of a difference money wise, but I can approach it with enthusiasm. I don't have to physically get up and go be somewhere that I don't want to be on a daily basis that's making me constantly deny who I am and how I feel. And so I think that has been very instrumental for me in creating that stronger connection to who I am and what I really want, is because I'm not constantly having to deny myself and push through in order to make ends meet.
I agree with you. I'm like you. I'm still like you. For a long time, I thought you were supposed to work hard to reach a comfortable station in life. The question is, what's comfortable? We live at a point in time where there's so much you can do. We no longer have to work a full career at one particular place in order to secure a future for ourselves that would create a space of comfort around us. But again, you have to listen. Something you said earlier reminded me. I was at work one day. This is some years ago, and I was listening to an interview, and they were mentioning something about living in your purpose. That thing you're doing is funny. It was an interview with a singer, and she was being told that singing is her purpose, and she's exactly where she should be doing exactly what she should be doing. And it made me look around my office, and I'm just like, yeah, this is not where I should be and what I should be doing. And it just made me start questioning, how did I know why I came, but I'm here much longer than I decided than I wanted to be. But this can't be my purpose. I believe there's a reason for me being there. And so I just prayed, and I just stood there where I was, and I just prayed, and I asked God to show me what my purpose is. And after I did it, I ended up having to walk to the front of the building, and someone came in and needed some assistance. And as soon as I spoke, the person said I should be doing something with my voice. In the proximity of my prayer and that happening, I broke down crying. I was just like, okay, it couldn't possibly be that simple. But then again, it goes to your foundation of, okay, what do you believe? What is the foundation you're built on? What is the landing that you're standing on of who you are and why you're doing anything that you're doing? You have to take time and assess those things, because it's a part of this journey that we're on in identifying and finding who we are. And not all of us are beautiful songbirds like yourself, and can see the portions and parts of our purpose that drive us forward. And so I'm standing there just asking, okay, how can it be that simple that I can just speak and I'm operating in my purpose? Like, and then if you walk, and again, depending on who you are spiritually, or where you are inside of your faith base or your religion, it just made me think, you weren't meant to toil in these things we do in this life. And society has taught us for a very long time that you have to work hard, and you have to put yourself in strenuous. It give you the idea that you have to put yourself in strenuous spaces in order to achieve anything, and that doesn't necessarily have to be true. And so you have to take moments to assess, why are you doing what you're doing? Is it attached to your wants and your desires? Are you seeing the things being created around you that contribute to what it is you want inside of this life? A lot of times people don't know. Whenever I sit and I help people or I coach people, I go, and I'm always going to ask, what do you want? Because that's going to guide us in the work that we're getting ready to do. And most people can't tell me. Most people cannot tell me what it is that they want, which means that they haven't allowed them enough time to sit down, be still, and just really address what they want, why they want it, and whether or not they're walking on the path in order to achieve those things. And because people look at it like a game show a lot of times, like I have to get the question right the first time because if I don't, then I risk everything. And life isn't like that. You came into this world wanting. Every day of your life, you're identifying different things that you either want, need, or desire that will contribute to your enjoyment inside of this life cycle. The question is, are you willing to go and get it? Are you willing to operate on a vibrational level that attracts you to that thing? And people who find themselves in those spaces where they're naturally attracted to a thing, and that thing be in their atmosphere, especially from a career space, they'll tell you they never work a day in their life because they're just enjoying their day and they're getting paid to do what they like to do. And so at some point in time, you're going to have to allow yourself to ask those questions and assess whether or not you're walking in those paths. And nobody ever said it was going to be easy. And so you just have to make those decisions at some point in time. And work and responsibility, it is easy to get off track, but you have to, at different points assess, are you still on this journey or this path that you made the decision to go on based on your desire, or have you strayed off that path because of responsibility?
Yeah, and those are the hard questions that we have to ask ourselves when we were talking about my voice and my singing voice. It made me thinking about what my journey was to kind of get to where I am today. I was raised in a church environment, and I sang in church for many, 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 many years. And in that, I was good for a long time, right? Because I was building up my skills as far as even how my voice to do anything on a spiritual level as opposed to just singing and really exploring my gifts. But at some point, it just became very uncomfortable to me once I came into a certain level of consciousness about what I was doing and why I was doing and who it was benefiting, as opposed to what I was supposed to be doing and why I was supposed to be doing it and who I was supposed to be benefiting. And so it's like you can be doing the right things, but if you're not doing them for the right reasons and in the right spaces, you can still have that sense of discontentment as it relates to, am I really living purposefully? So for those of you who have just joined at this point, we kind of shifted the conversation into talking about purposeful living and how we can connect with our intuition to help us determine whether or not we're on the right path or on a path that is what we designed for ourselves before we came into this realm, right? And so I think about what you were saying about working hard, right? for a long time, I just really had this hustle mentality. I saw my mom get up, go to work every single day, work overtime, work double time, work every holiday, and I just felt like, okay, this is how you become successful and you obtain sustainability and comfort and wealth, and this is the only path, to do that, because that was the only example that was set for me. But as I'm getting older, I'm starting to realize that, number one, it's not sustainable. And that, at a very soon point, she's not going to have the will to get up every single day and go be in that office and do those things. And so, while those methods are effective from a monetary standpoint, it's not always reasonable to say, oh, I'm going to just get up and work hard every day and be able to attain this, that, and the other. And so for me, I have been on a journey to figure out, okay, well, what can I do in order to live a life that's more ease for myself? Shout out to Love LLC. Thank you for joining and for the love in the chat. Feel free to answer the question about whether or not you feel like you're living purposefully and how you connect with your intuition to make those determinations. But big part of it for me is saying, hey, I'm not going to work a 40-hour week. I'm going to only be open to what feels right for me. And if that means less money on the front end, then that means that Source has some other way that it wants to provide for me, and being open to those ways of provision and making sure that anything that I align myself with is also aligned with my purpose. I was talking to a good girlfriend of mine the other day, and she went to a truck driving school and she got her CDL, and she had a plan in order to use the money that she was making from her CDL in order to fund her holistic journey, because she's really good with herbs and things of that nature, and she really wants to be a holistic practitioner. And somehow after she got her CDL, now she's got a really good job and she's got the income, she's not devoting those resources that she's earning and putting them back into what Spirit intentionally placed in her heart as far as a purpose for her even getting her CDL. And so she's experiencing a great amount of discontentment. And I just want to reiterate the fact that, sometimes we do have jobs and we have careers and we have professions, but we can still utilize those things in order to fuel our dreams and put us in our purpose, and in order to, make those things align, because Spirit blesses us with those things in order to help us achieve our goals. And we just have to make sure that we're reallocating whatever resources it is that we're receiving into fueling whatever monetary goals we may have for our purpose. And that way we'll have a greater level of contentment in those spaces. It's going to be very hard to motivate yourself to get up to go to work every day when all you're getting is to be able to pay your bills and then get up and go to work every day again. And so just being really conscious about whether or not you're redirecting the funds that you're receiving from your resources that Source has provided to you in order to fulfill your purpose is going to be essential, especially if you want some level of stability, right? Because what I found in my personal life is Source will be like, you're not using this resource to do what it is that I told you to do, so I'm going to just cut this resource off, And so just being, aware of redirecting those funds that you receive and the energy that you're getting into what you're truly purposed to do.
I used to believe that blessings, a blessing only comes once or in a cycle. And if you didn't take advantage of that blessing, then now you got to sit and wait. And it was going to take time for another blessing to come around. And so people keep themselves stuck in places waiting on things, like they're going to show up in the mail or something. And it took me just to like infinite. I was just having a conversation with someone the other day. There's nothing that you want that is outside of your reach. They may be conversations away. They may be you receiving information that turns lights on inside of you that allow you to see things differently than you ever have before. But Source is always hearing you. If you're asking, Source is always answering. And Source is The source in the universe is always working in conjunction with you in order to get you in the space that will allow you to achieve anything that you want. It never stops. It never turns off. Oftentimes, our belief systems will keep you just outside of that thing. Again, like a lot of times when I ask people what they want, they try and figure out a way to keep it just far enough in the distance that they can see it, but they just can't touch it. So they still have work to do in order to get somewhere. And they never see themselves actually realizing those things that they want. In my prayer and meditation this morning, I was realizing I was doing that thing with some of the things that I want and I'm working on. I'll keep it something that I have to do just in front of me that I never actually get to doing it, probably just so I don't have to realize any disappointment in not receiving or achieving. And so today, I'm going to work through some of those things today, just so that I can overcome them. And it's funny because it's simple things that I've done a million times over and over again. But I'll just keep it right there. And when I talk to a lot of people, a lot of times they want these ethereal. If you ask them what they want, they'll respond with these ethereal things or things that try to encompass everything that they're ever going to want in life, whether they know it or not. So they just don't get it wrong. So they're not doing the wrong things in life, or at least understanding that they're doing something different than what it is they actually want to do in order to achieve whatever their life goals are. And I always tell people, you're just kicking a can. You'll reach forward and you'll take that step and you'll kick the can further ahead of you just so you still have something to do to keep on that path, just to tell yourself you're working in the direction in which you want to go. And actually, you're stalling yourself out from actually achieving the joy that it is you're looking for. So, yeah. And sometimes you just have to look at it. But like I say, you got it. If you really want to get better at being intuitive about your should or your shouldn'ts or the directions in which you want to go, just start going. Even if it's the wrong way, you don't have to turn around and go back. You just have to pivot. And no matter how big or small the pivot you choose to make, you're going to get better at assessing what all these different feelings, emotions, sounds, ideas that pop up inside of you, what they're operating for. You have to play with it. You'll get used to it, and it'll become clearer. And you'll see that the choices that you're making, that you're fine tuning, you're becoming better at fine tuning the choices that you're making based on the goals and desires that you have. So trust yourself. Even if you fail, so what? There's something in there for you to learn. Take that lesson, move forward, go again. Again, with a few of the business opportunities that presented themselves while I've been sitting up healing, I'm just listening to myself, how I feel. Okay, this is how I feel about that thing. Okay, let's make room and space for this new thing to see where it takes us, because how I feel about it, there's potential. Let's go find out what that potential is. Let's not waste a lot of time making a lot of decisions unless spiritually, emotionally, physically, there's something telling us not to. Yeah, you get to practice and play with it.
That's great advice. So, the best way to do it is just go. Absolutely.
Yeah, and again, going isn't meaning you're spending. It doesn't mean you're leaving. It doesn't mean you're quitting. It just means, okay, what can I do from this space? Realistically, well, that will get me at least a step forward towards anything that I want or desire. You know, if I got if I'm a woman and I got to lead this guy to do it, financially, I just can't walk out the door. Pack a bag. Spend a night somewhere. See what it feels like to not be in that environment for a day. That's you making efforts going in a direction that you may be questioning. If you feel better outside of that space than you do inside of that space, at least now you receive some type of confirmation that change is necessary in that area. Now you can start planning and putting the proper things in place that will make that an easy decision for you at some point in time.
Yeah, being able to break those goals down into smaller steps helps you to not be overwhelmed, because it's so easy to look at this big thing that you have to do and say, oh, well, how do I do this big thing? When, like you said, it's just take the first step in it. Like, what can you do right now in this moment in order to get you where it is that you're trying to go? It doesn't have to be the big thing at one time.
Yeah, take baby steps. I sat up, my brother and I was having a conversation yesterday. He pulled up in a brand new 2021 truck. I forget which kind it is. He was like, no, this is the wife's. And I was like, wait, those crafts you guys are doing, making that much money? He said, man, you don't know. And I remember watching his wife start in her basement, just taking order, doing little odd end crafts for people. And now, if you go into their house in the basement, it looks like a factory or a warehouse down there with all the equipment. And they're continuing to expand to the point where they're looking for a commercial space. I was like, I didn't know you guys were making this type of money. It was like, it's different, it's growing, and it's allowing them to change. And it started with the baby steps that they took. Believing in themselves, just taking the baby steps and doing the different things that they did. And I remember when they just started doing different little crafts. And so, doesn't matter where you want to go. People do it all the time, not knowing. It's just a lot of times we come to these spaces where now you have to start looking at things that are foreign to us, or things that go against the trainings that we've had in the past, that now you have to adopt something totally different, and it gets scary at times. So what? It's just a signal that this is something different. There's something you need to learn. It's something you need to maybe prepare for, but you have to. It all starts with asking yourself, what do I want? And allowing yourself to be honest and transparent with yourself, instead of just shrugging off an idea that continually pops up inside of you. So, yeah.
Oh, thank you for that. I'm feeling pretty complete. I feel like this is a good place to wrap up. We're coming right up on an hour. I'm really grateful for you sharing your insight with me and coming to host this conversation with me. I know you could be doing anything. If you guys don't know, Alvin is a practitioner. He offers amazing services. Definitely, if you resonate with Alvin, tap in with him. He has helped me just transform my energy in the way that I connect with the world and people here lately. I'm super excited about the things that I have coming up and the ways that Alvin has helped me to develop myself to be more prepared for them. So definitely tap in with Alvin if you resonate with Alvin. He's amazing as a practitioner, so definitely work with him. And y'all know I coach, and I'm connected to a number of different communities. I'm building a local community, so if you're looking for a community or you need coaching, definitely reach out to me. I would be more than happy to get you connected. I appreciate your time. If you're watching this on the replay, you watch it all the way to the end. Give me a heart, a thumbs up, a crown, something. Just let me know that you were touched and you appreciate the content. I guess I will speak with you guys on Wednesday. We're here every Monday, every Wednesday at 1:11. Alvin has graciously joined me today, and whenever he has time, he's willing to pop in. So I'm super duper grateful for that. I will see you guys next time. Thank you, Alvin.
Welcome. Thanks for having me.